Hi and welcome back to another video. Today we are visiting Corsair here at Computex 2023, and honestly I'm quite surprised, like positively surprised at what Corsair is showing, because recently I've been working quite a lot with them, and that meant I had to build a lot of RGB systems. And if you are familiar with the normal Corsair components, and let's say you have a build with 6 or 9 fans, this means you have 2 cables per fan. So yeah, that's a lot of hassle, especially for the cable management, organizing everything, and this totally changed today. Here we have an example of a Corsair Link system, and this means that a lot is changing when it comes to the cable management. Just starting as example with the AIO. As you can see, there's no cable going from there. Previously, you always had one cable going from there with the RPM, and then you had another USB connection on there, and this is all gone. There's one cable going through the sleeve, all the way up to the radiator, and there is one tiny connection cable up here. And also for the fans, it's the same thing. 3 are connected together, and then there's a tiny cable either on the bottom or at the top. One more thing that changed and also was enhanced is the fact that the fans now got a lot more intelligent, because all of the fans now have an MCU sitting in there, which allows a lot of different and also quite entertaining effects. So we have a Steam Deck right here, and I can press static. And I mean, this might look a little bit terrible on the camera because of the flickering. That's obviously not how it looks for me right now, but you can see you will get the effect of that the fans look like they don't rotate anymore. But in reality, the MCU is reading the RPM, and according to the RPM, it's controlling the LED. So the LED is basically flashing pretty quickly to create this effect that the fans are not spinning. So we can also change this into, let's say, clockwise, and then you get the effect or the impression that the fans would spin slowly. So that's pretty cool. And the fact that you have the MCU in there also allow for other opportunities. With this MCU, you have the opportunity to also put temperature sensors in here. It might remind you of one of the recent AMD graphics cards. The 7900 XTX, for example, had this kind of feature, and you have the same feature on here. So there's this tiny hole in the fan right here, and there is a temperature sensor. And I think that's an amazing feature, simply because it will allow you to have a lot of different values in your system. So for example, you could place the fans in front as intake. So you could measure the intake temperature going inside your system. At the same time, you could measure, let's say, if you have push-pull configuration inside your radiator, you could measure what's the intake temperature on the radiator and what's the hot outtake temperature. That's an amazing feature. I think it's something definitely worth to have. And then also, that's what I wanted to show, the fans are easily detachable. So that's something which we've seen from a lot of vendors recently. It's the same kind of thing with Corsair, just that they have their own interface, the Corsair Link, and it's very easy to use. I will show you how the interface looks like in a close-up in a second. But this way you can quickly and easily connect the fans without having those annoying 2 cables on each fan. Here we have a nice demo system that easily allows to show how efficient this kind of system is. All the way down here we have the Corsair Link controller, and theoretically you will have access on the left and on the right. So one on the left, one on the right. And on each you could connect 7 devices. That's also the reason why this cable is pretty thick. And talking about the cable, this is one, and it kind of reminds me of a very big USB-C cable. I also asked them why not just go for USB Type-C and go with something existing, but apparently the problem is the power rating, because each cable is rated for 7 amps. And the reason is because on each side you could theoretically hook up to 7 devices. So theoretically you could hook up 7 water pumps in one row, for example. And obviously the cable has to be able to cope with that amount of power. But as you can see, I mean, we have 3 fans on the top, we have 3 fans on the side with the AIO, and there are almost no cables except for the one going on the bottom and the one going on top here to the top fans. And I mean, even though this is obviously not fully new, I mean, we've seen this from Lian Li, for example, with the daisy chaining and magnetic fans, but overall, including this into an entire ecosystem is pretty amazing. Over here we have some kind of universal GPU blocks, not really universal, they will fit for a certain amount of GPUs. I'm also still trying to convince Corsair that I can take them off. They're screwed from the back, but I just want to show you how it looks like from the back side. Apart from that, we have new custom water cooling blocks, finally also one with the LCD. And as you might notice, the LCD one has a USB Type-C cable, whereas this one only has the Corsair Link cable on the bottom. The reason for that is pretty simple. I mean, for this, it's going to be just for the Corsair Link system, but for the LCD, because it requires a higher bandwidth to show the 30 frames per second, they have to go for USB Type-C. So they would not be able to have the same bandwidth with the Corsair Link cable. So that's why they had to make this trade-off. And what I personally found quite interesting is looking at the water channel of this block. That is pretty unique. So we have the intake here. I hope you can see it. And then it's actually split into 3 parts. So we have one inlet in the center, one on the left and one on the right. So that's a kind of new design. When it comes to the flow direction, I have not seen before. One more thing I would like to show is this reservoir pump combination. I find kind of interesting, especially because it has the LCD on the bottom. And you can see it's like 57 degrees Celsius liquid temperature. It's also pretty warm. That's simply because the pump has been like running in a circle for probably the entire day. There's no radiator to dissipate the heat, so that's probably what you get from there. Apart from that, you can see it's also able to integrate this into the new Corsair Link system, but again, as on the custom water cooling block, we have to use additional USB Type-C because you have to support the bandwidth to the LCD screen. But apart from that, it's a pretty nice looking LCD display and reservoir pump combination. Corsair also shows the new Dominator Titanium memory modules, and obviously my first question was, are they actually made of titanium? And unfortunately they're not, and I was disappointed. Jokes aside, they're actually looking quite nice. So what they're displaying on the left is, I'm not going to talk about this because this is like an experiment. This is nothing that's going to be on sale, but that's what you're actually going to be able to buy. So that's going to be this stick right here, which looks kind of similar to the previous Dominator, but the top part is different. And the top part is also completely detachable, which absolutely reminds me of Dominator GT from like 10 years ago. Because it's the same thing. So you can either have those RGB top, that's pretty much the stock thing, so that's what you buy the memory with. And then you can also have different tops like this one, which is what I'm talking about, that this reminds me of the original Dominator GT. That's pretty cool. So you can have like additional cooling if you need it. I'm not sure how much more it would actually cool. But then I also asked Corsair, so what about water cooling blocks? Because back then you might remember that you were able to remove all of these screws and then screw one big water cooling block on top. And they did not want to confirm it to me, but I could see in the face, and the fact that they didn't straight say no probably means that we will see that in the future. So that is pretty cool. Pretty nice inventions from Corsair, I have to say, and yeah, pretty cool to see this back, which definitely reminds me of the old Corsair Dominator. Then there is also this showcase system on the right side. As you can see, 2 sticks running in there. It's also because it's modular, so they picked the white sticks and then put the black RGB thing on top. I'm not sure if I would do exactly the same, but this is definitely impressive. So they are running 8,266 megatransfers. It's a memory speed that's rather high and probably not recommended for daily usage, because I also asked them how many CPUs and boards did you have to go through to maintain the speed, and they said it's in the 1% range. So that means I don't know, 100 CPUs or maybe 800 CPUs and maybe 20 boards. So that's something you should not expect for daily use, but certainly impressive to show that they're capable of running a speed like this. I'm almost done at the Corsair booth. Almost everybody left. We're still here, and I got my iFixit kit with me, the mighty one. Unfortunately, this is no placement, but I still carry it with me because we want to now open one of these universal GPU water blocks. We found one, so fortunately we did not have to remove the other one, but we will simply take a look inside, see how this is built. So let's take a look inside. So we're just looking at the cold plate. You can see it's just looks like 2mm piece of copper with skived copper in the center, milled around to probably create the water channel or get rid of maybe some part of the skiving process. And in here, what's kind of interesting is that this entire part is a PCB. So that's probably for all the RGB light. And only in the center, this is the actual water block. You have this tiny I don't think it's acrylic, it's probably also nylon stuff. So that's for the water inlet jet water distribution. And then the water will go through the fins, spread out, and go to the outtake on here. That's it from Corsair booth 2023. The good thing is that they just gave me a PC DIY toolkit. That means next time when I will be here, I don't even have to use the iFixit kit. I can use their own kit to disassemble their stuff. So that might be something interesting for the future. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Bye bye.